This is a game on the AT-7, the Tier 7 British tank destroyer. One of the unique things about this tank destroyer, as you can see, is that the gun is actually mounted on the far right of the tank, and that gives interesting opportunities, particularly going around the right sides of buildings. You don't have to expose nearly as much, but on the same token, if going around the left side of the buildings, you have to expose even more of your tank. But it's just one of those interesting things. This is mines on encounter. I don't normally have encounter on, but Oberist is, I'm running with Oberist here, and he had encounter on. I've played encounter before, and the interesting thing about encounter is that the cap point on mines encounter is actually probably the most important part of the map, and so that's where we're going to head, whereas typically on the regular mines, the hill is somewhat of importance. It's not really important at all in this game because it's really easy to pull them off of the hill. And the interesting thing about where they put the cap point in encounter is that there's a lot of non-destructible buildings that you can go to around here. So if you have a heavy tank, or pretty much anything with a turret, this is usually a pretty good place to go. And it is still encounter though, so it's not like it's really easy for them to cap you out. It'll still take a lot of time, so all you have to do is just make sure that you also get on the cap and you can stop the counter, and it's pretty straightforward from there. So although they have a couple guys on the cap, you know, we're not really worried about it at this point. And you want to try to get to hard cover if you can. Well, let's see, going around the left side of this building I have to expose a lot of the tank, but going around on the other side I actually do not. They've got a couple guys up in here, which I can hit. There's a couple posts and walls and bits of rubble that I'll need to shoot down.
That one didn't go through.
It's a trap!
Enemy armor is damaged.
It's a trap!
And then we see that there's that IS-2 starting to creep up on our right. And so what you definitely do not want to get happen to you in a slow non-turreted tank destroyer is you don't want to get flanked. But he parks on the bad side of the building right here, and so I'm able to track him, and then if you'll look, I can barely shoot between the building and him. So I'm going to alternate shooting his track, keeping him in position, and then shooting his turret face to deal damage. And he moved back a little bit more there because he repaired his track. And if he turns his turret, it makes it easier for me to shoot. But there's certain angles at which I will stop penning. I think it's a shot. Oh, and the next one. But basically, the tank fires fast enough that I can continue to do that as long as I pen the turret. And it's just, he's at just barely a sharp enough angle that I'm not penning him. So I have to move forward a little bit in order to get him. Right, in the meantime, we're kind of losing traction a little bit over here. They've still got those 8s over there, so I need to try to wrap this up.
Enemy armor is damaged. Gotcha! We fixed the track. Get going.
And so they're going to push that FCM off of the hill, and he's going to damage himself going down. Hilarious effect.
Got him!
It's a trap!
And then they have a Roomba here. And so basically what I want to be able to do is, because I only have this T-32 left, I need to try to get these guys in front of me, otherwise theoretically they'll be able to work together and theoretically be able to flank me. They don't actually try. So what ends up happening is that I end up pushing the Roomba, so this Roomba gets flanked by an AT-7, which should be embarrassing. I think I'm trying to figure out where that Cromwell is first. And then, so you'll see that the base capture is basically paused now because I'm on the cap and the Roomba's on the cap. So there's no pressure on them to go in. But again, it's one of those situations where as long as you start putting pressure on them, then you make it difficult for them to, you make them have to push in, which gives you a lot of shooting opportunities, which is really how we've generated a lot of this so far. That was a bad shot by me. So I took a shot of damage that I probably didn't have to there, but still works out okay. Make sure that you're relatively already safe behind this building here. And the cap timer has started again. And so the Cromwell that should have tried to flank me, you know, a while ago, you know, we're able to take those guys down in succession. The Roomba and then the Crommy.
It's a trap!
The driver's injured.
And then unfortunately I get my gunner and my driver killed there. So I fixed the driver in this case, not the gunner, because what I'm worried about, because our team is fairly potato, I'm more worried about getting flanked than I am being able to just shoot things, because anything that's going to try to kill me is going to try to kill me from relatively close range. And not having your driver, or having a dead engine and a slow non-turreted tank destroyer, it's awful. I'm going to speed this up a bit because this is going to get a little boring, but essentially, so what I'll do is I'll drive around here and I'm trying to figure out what side they're going to come from. Like, I know the Indians over there. I know that they have to come over here eventually because we're on the cap and we're putting cap pressure on. So I just need to figure out which side he's coming from. And so I back up there and he lights me on that left side, so that gives me an idea at least of where he is. And I'm sort of waiting for our 8s to do anything, but they're kind of going to the hill.
It's a trap!
And luckily, someone who is not our tier 8s is able to kill the Indian, which pretty much seals the deal there. And then I don't even bother trying to get off the cap to chase down the artillery. I probably could, but non-turreted tank destroyers and a couple of bots, I don't know that would necessarily be the best thing to do. So might as well cap out. So anyways, in summary, the tank itself is an interesting play, again, because of the right-mounted turret, and particularly on encounter and mines, I think playing this area is really important. You can get a couple guys up in here and a couple guys over here, and they can get good crossfire working with each other. You just need to try to be sure to clear out these guys here, otherwise they'll get shots on your dudes. But otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward map and a pretty relatively fun tank to play, even though it's kind of slow. Alright, and so if we look at those stats, not surprisingly, the majority of the damage was done by the people in the town by the cap. Both myself and the AT-7 and the T-28 that was over there did a lot of damage. Those guys that were hiding in the base really didn't affect the outcome. You can go to the hill, but it's really not as important. I would say that either island and or city are probably more important strategically, just because the hill, you don't really get to shoot at the same sorts of targets that you would in a regular game, in an encounter game. So I hope that was helpful. Just as one of the few highlights that I've done on this sort of lower tier British tank destroyer. So hopefully that was entertaining, and thanks for watching.